I don't know about you, but sometimes I just like being alone. It's not about loneliness. I don't really like loneliness, but there are times when I just want to be alone with my own thoughts, with all that's going on in my world, with all that's going on in my work. Just time to be by myself. Sometimes Melanie and I will go for walks, and that's great because we can talk about things that are going on in our relationship, in the light, in our world. We can have those kinds of talks. But when I'm all by myself doing those walks, I'm not listening to music. I'm not listening to podcasts. I'm just on my own, and frankly, that's one of those times where sermon prep happens when I'm all alone, or when I think about these kinds of devotionals, what I might do for a devotional. That's where those thoughts come. And I think the reason for that is when I'm alone, I'm not really alone, am I? I mean, we believe that God is with us at all times. And so when I'm alone, what that means is I've got time, I've got space to just be with God, to just be in this moment where I can have a thought conversation with God and what's going on in my life. I was thinking about that specifically, and I recalled this scripture where it's kind of a strange scripture, actually. What happens before it, it's in Exodus chapter 33, but right before that, in Exodus 32, Moses is up on the mountain and he is alone with God. It's just Moses and God up on the mountain. And he had been leading the entire nation of Israel out of Egypt. He had been taking them across the desert. He had been doing all of that stuff, which is a very public and very upfront kind of leader thing. But now he's off with God all alone. And while he's off with God all alone, the people get distracted and they decide to build this golden calf. And they decide to worship this golden calf because they don't really know what's happened to Moses at this point, and they're afraid maybe he's fallen off the mountain or he's died or something. They don't know. Anyway, during that time, God tells Moses that you've got to get back down because the people have gone astray. And then right after that, in chapter 33, right after God is kind of having this conversation with Moses, he tells him that he wants them to leave the place that they are. He wants them to lead the people who he says you have led out of Egypt. So it's like God's not even taking credit for this at this point. I think God's really upset. He says, you're going to take them into the new land, and you're going to confront all those who are in the land, and I'm going to take you to the promised land. But he says this really curious thing. He says, go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go among you, or I will consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. I mean, it is this weird conversation where God seems to be so furious with how stubborn the people are that he tells Moses, he goes, okay, I'm out, I'm done. I want you to just go off. I want you to lead the people. Yep, I'm going to give them the promised land because, I promised that, but you're on your own. It's a weird moment. It's a weird moment in Scripture. But here's what happens next. A little bit later in the chapter, Moses has a one-on-one with God. Again, I picture Moses, being all alone. He goes into the tent where he and God can have this conversation. And in the midst of that conversation, he basically confronts God and he says, look, you promise to be with us always. You promise to never leave us. And then he reminds them this, and this is verse 16 of chapter 33. He says, for how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people, unless you go with us? In this way we shall be distinct, I and your people, from every people on the face of the earth. Basically what's going on there is Moses is saying, look, yeah, we can go into this promised land. Yes, we can go into this land flowing with milk and honey. Yes, we can go and live as free people away from Egypt where we were enslaved. Yes, we can do all that, but it's not worth it if you're not with us. You see, the fact is, Moses values his relationship with God more than just about anything else. Well, take that back. More than anything else. Moses, sure, he wants to be in the comfort of the promised land. Sure, he wants the people to be rescued out of Egypt. Sure, he wants them to find a secure place to live. But the bottom line is he doesn't want any of that if he doesn't live in the presence of God. I love that. I think that is such a powerful statement from Moses' standpoint about how much he values God's presence. That's something we need to learn. We need to know how valuable God's presence is, but if we never spend time alone with God, we may miss out. So the next time you're alone, realize, I'm not alone. God is with me, and value that time.